Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the First Unitarian Fellowship of Nanaimo. Our mission is to create spiritual connection and bring compassion, discovery, and social justice to life. My name is Larry Bolt, and I have the honor and privilege of being your service leader this morning. My pronouns are he, him, and his. We ask you now to take a moment to silence your cell phones, put them more on a worship mode. And we have a bunch of people on Zoom, so we want to say hi to them. So if you turn around and see the frog on the wall, wave to that big green frog there. And then when you turn around here, you'll see them waving back at you. Whatever your hopes, dreams, and aspirations, whatever your race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, whatever makes you who you are warmly welcome here. In keeping with our Unitarian Universalist aspiration of radical inclusion, we invite you to share your pronouns as well as your name when introducing yourself, if that's something you're comfortable doing. We are grateful for a diversity of voices on Sunday mornings, and our services vary from week to week. Our service is between 60 and 75 minutes long. If this is your first time with us, a very special welcome to you. And if you're joining us online, please consider sharing your contact information with us. You can share it with the host by going to the chat icon at the bottom of the screen. We'd love to welcome you to our community. We have a website, ufon.ca, and invite you to check it out for more detailed information about who we are, the services we offer, and how you can connect with us. We acknowledge today that we meet on the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. As Unitarians, we're committed to the work of reconciliation required to address the harm done to all Indigenous peoples and their cultures by non-Indigenous peoples. We have much to learn from the Indigenous perspective, including that the earth is the source of all life, and that our responsibility is to honor and care for it. Next week, our service will be at 9:30 a.m. That's make sure you note that in your calendar because it's Pride Sunday. And that's to allow people to be able to attend the Pride Parade. And on Tuesday at City Hall, there is a flag raising, Pride flag raising, and all are welcome to join us there. And of course, the Pride Parade. And we have something set up at the Pride Parade too, don't we? Yes. Yeah, so Unitarians are going to be very well represented of this year's Pride. Our music director, Leah Hokinson, is taking a well-deserved week off. We're honored to once again have Nico Rhodes as filling in for her. I've been told that Nico's been hanging around the Port Theatre recently and causing quite a hullabaloo. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, please feel free to ask him after today's service. I'm sure he'll have tickets to sell you. After today's service as well, though, we're holding our annual budget general meeting. You'll recall that during the month of March, we held our annual Canvas Pledge Drive. The final tally was $88,670. Your Finance Committee has now put together the budgets for our fellowship and foundation. The board has approved these, and now you, our members, get to vote on the budget for the upcoming church year, which runs from July 1st of this year to June 30th, 2027, next year. The meeting will begin at 12:30 after today's service, so don't forget. To find out about all special events, groups, and meetings taking place in the hall, you can go to the calendar on our website, read the weekly email sent to you on Friday, or check out the large white boards in the hall by the washrooms. When you go through this exit to the right, washrooms will be on the left, boards on the right. So now let us enter into sacred time. Our guest musician, Nico Rhodes, will lead us into worship through music.
Welcome to this place of reflection, fellowship, and inner growth. I'm Reverend Ashley, and it is my honor to serve as your minister here. As we enter into this time of sacred awareness, I invite you to rest. Rest in this present moment with an open heart. And simply let this moment be as it is. Chalice lighting today comes from Bear Kolazukwa. Quite a name. As we light the chalice, may our souls become its hearth. We join our hearts to one great flame of bright compassion, beloved community, and fervent justice. May we become lanterns to the world, lighting the way for all. And please rise in body or spirit to join in hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. And those who are young of body or spirit, or who are accompanying them, are welcome to come up to our very tiny mat here for the time for all ages. Oh, yes. All right. So I have some fruit here. We've got, what do we got in here? Yep. We've got oranges and grapes and strawberries. You guys like grapes? You like strawberries? You like oranges? They're all good, right? They all provide you with vitamin C and fiber and help you grow, but they're different from each other, right? And I think that religion is something like that. Different religions are very different, but they all teach people what? How to be compassionate. You guys have probably heard me talk about compassion. You know what compassion is? What is it? When you care about how other people feel, right? Yeah. So I think that there's lots of different religions, and they're different from each other, but they teach people how to be compassionate, and they teach people how to be aware of the present moment, kind of in different ways. And do you know what awareness is? I'll do something one of my Buddhist teachers taught me. Do you think you have awareness? Raise your hand if you think you have awareness. Okay. And then raise your hand if you think you don't have awareness. And if you're not sure, raise your hand. Yeah. So if you raised your hand and said, yes, I'm aware, well, you know you're aware, right? And if you raised your hand and said, I don't have awareness, well, you know you're not aware, so you have awareness. And if you didn't know, then you know you don't know. So everyone has awareness. But all the religions are kind of teaching us how to be aware, how to be compassionate. And do you know how we say this in Unitarian Universalism? We say we keep love at the center. That's how we talk about it. So it kind of means like we have love at the center of our bodies and the way we feel about other people, right? We feel the care. And also we think about what would be loving first, and then we act based on that. We keep love at the center of how we act. So you can take the fruit, you can keep eating the fruit, you can go back with summer, and you can remember to keep love at the center. All right, we'll sing the children out with As You Go.
We'll now do our offering. For those of us in the hall, Debbie and Charla will now pass the baskets. For those with us for the first or second time, we consider your presence to be your contribution. Feel free to let the basket pass. Those online can go to our website and click the big blue donate button on the homepage, at the bottom of the homepage, to give. To help the wider community, half of all cash donations will be given to our charity of the month. Our charity this month is the Nanaimo Area Land Trust, or NALT for short. Since 1995, members of NALT have been working to fulfill their mission to support, promote, and protect the natural values of land and water in our area. To find out more about their work, you can go to to www.nalt.bc.ca. If your donation is by e-transfer or check, and you want it to be shared with the charity of the month, please make a note of that on your e-transfer or check. And for those of you who don't carry cash, we now accept donations via debit and credit cards. This can be done at our welcoming table near the entry doors after the service. Thank you for your generosity towards our congregation and our community.
We are a community that seeks to be present for each other, especially in times of great joy or great sorrow. Now is the time in our service when we make space to listen deeply to significant losses and milestones. If you're in the sanctuary, I invite you to come and share your name and your joy or your sorrow from the mic at the pulpit. And as you share, we will place a stone into this bowl of holy water. So now we place a final stone for all the joys and sorrows spoken and unspoken. And we hold in our hearts all that has been shared. I invite you to join in a moment of silence for prayer or meditation as you are called.
Our reading today is from the Dalai Lama. For a considerable portion of humanity today, it is possible and indeed likely that one's neighbor, one's colleague, or one's employer will have a different mother tongue, eat different food, and follow a different religion than oneself. It is a matter of great urgency, therefore, that we find ways to cooperate with one another in a spirit of mutual acceptance and respect. In such a world, I feel it is vital for us to find genuinely sustainable and universal approach to ethics, inner values, and personal integrity an approach that can transcend religious, cultural, and racial differences. An appeal to people at a sustainable, universal approach is what I call the project of secular ethics. All religions, therefore, to some extent, ground the cultivation of inner values and ethical awareness in some kind of metaphysical, that is, not empirically demonstrable, understanding of the world and of life after death. And just as the doctrine of divine judgment underlies ethical teachings in many theistic religions, so too does the doctrine of karma and future lives in non-theistic religions. As I see it, spirituality has two dimensions. The first dimension, that of basic spiritual well-being, by which I mean inner mental and emotional strength and balance, does not depend on religion, but comes from our innate human nature as beings with a natural disposition toward compassion, kindness, and caring for others. The second dimension is what may be considered religion-based spirituality, which is acquired from our upbringing and culture and is tied to particular beliefs and practices. The difference between the two is something like the difference between water and tea. On this understanding, ethics consists less of rules to be obeyed than of principles for inner and self-regulation to promote those aspects of our nature which we recognize as conducive to our own well-being and that of others. It is by moving beyond narrow self-interest that we find meaning, purpose, and satisfaction in life.
So there's a joke I have with myself that is only funny to me. It's just for me, truly. Maybe there's one other person in the world who would find this funny, but they would have to have such a specific set of interests. I really doubt it. So first, they would have to have a deep knowledge of the Buffy the Vampire Slayer universe. It has its flaws. Sometimes it shows its age, but a lot of that show has held up, and I was really bummed that the reboot got canceled. And a moment of recognition for Anthony Stewart Head, also known as the character Giles, who died this week. I really did start this extremely specific sermon about a 20-year-old comedy/horror show before that happened. But my Buffy fans know he was a really gifted actor and singer and one of my favorite characters, so sending care to his family. But back to the joke. In order to appreciate my internal joke, in addition to remembering season 5 of a show from the early 2000s, someone would also have to be interested enough in studying different religious traditions to repeatedly engage a new teacher or practice or text and learn more about that perspective and way of engaging in spiritual life, try to deeply understand that very unique and different way of practicing, and ultimately realize that the main purpose of this complex teaching is to tell you to be nice to people. So it's an extremely specific set of criteria. But I am a Buffy fan, and I studied religion in both college and graduate school, and obviously I kept it up because here I am. So let me see if I can explain this. There's a plot line in Buffy where this evil deity named Glory, who possesses the body of an innocent, ordinary guy named Ben, and she's able to morph into her true evil deity Glory form and create all kinds of chaos and damage, but not all the time, because she's from another universe, and her powers aren't as strong here. She's weakened by Earth, kind of like reverse Superman. And Buffy and her gang are trying to stop Glory from doing all this damage, but they can't find her because Glory's able to use her deity powers to confuse the human mind so that even though people can see that Ben morphs into glory and glory morphs into Ben to hide, they immediately forget that they witnessed that. And they also aren't able to remember that information if someone explains it to them. So even though Buffy has this sort of reformed vampire on her side, who's immune to the human mind control and keeps trying to explain the situation to the humans keep forgetting the explanation. So this is all exceptionally nerdy. Like, if nerdiness was an elite sport, we are in the Olympics right now. Yeah? And I just want to be really clear here, I'm not expecting you to laugh at the joke at the end of a several paragraph explanation. I just want you to understand what's happening in my mind. So anyway, as the vampire repeatedly explains the Ben and Glory situation to the humans, they repeatedly seem to begin to understand what he's saying, and then because of her magic powers, they just can't. They'll start to say the sentence, Ben is Glory and Glory is Ben, which is the situation, but then they will get confused in the middle of it and say something like, so you're saying Ben and Glory are connected somehow? Yeah. And that is the line that pops into my head. The little joke I laugh at to myself whenever I'm studying a new spiritual teaching or working with a new spiritual practice, and it becomes clear that the purpose of that teaching or practice is, in large part, to remain in a state of awareness and be kind. Or, as we Unitarian Universalists often say it, put love at the center. As much as we forget and get into interreligious conflict, that is the main point of it all. There are some wild spiritual practices. Different forms of meditation, complex visualizations, spinning around in circles, variations on prostrations, or as a friend of mine calls it, hitting the deck, studying different texts in different ways, fasting, swinging around incense, wearing silly hats. For those of you who heard my Hat Day sermon, you know this is one of the time-honored traditions of religious life. My Buddhist lineage is colloquially called the Black Hat lineage. And they seem really different, and they are, depending on how you look at things, because religion always has people who are speaking literally, people who are speaking in metaphor, and the mystics who kind of just use language because they have to. And to some people, the difference between using leavened and unleavened bread for the Eucharist is a matter of extreme importance, and you can't conflate traditions to say everything means the same thing. The differences between traditions are real, so I don't want to use the sometimes useful and sometimes problematic metaphor of religion being different paths up the same mountain. But it is often the case that religion works something like different kinds of food. There are 1,000 different combinations of food you can use to nourish yourself, but in the end, the goal is to have a healthy and functioning body. There are many different ways that people build religious worldviews, but in the end, the purpose of religion is generally to encourage us to keep love at the center. And I think this metaphor also works well because it points to the reality that religious practices and teachings work as a whole. So a Mediterranean diet and an Okinawan diet and a Nordic diet are all healthy diets. But if you only eat the proteins out of all three and not any fruits and vegetables, you will have a problem. Jumping around from spiritual tradition to spiritual tradition when the going gets tough, or whenever you're asked to practice discipline or patience or compassion or whatever it is that's hard for you, will mean you don't really get much out of it. And of course, everyone is different, and fundamentalism doesn't work either. Trying to force a Mediterranean diet on someone who is allergic to olives is not going to end well. In the end, though, all these teachings do tend to point in that direction of keeping love at the center. And we humans often can't seem to remember that. We get caught up in our differences and our determination to be right, We can be so foolish about this that we require years of extremely specific spiritual practice only to recognize this most essential and simple truth. And I will often find myself learning about some esoteric text and practice only to find that the heart of it is just that, awareness and compassion. In my religious studies, I've done the Ignatian spiritual exercises from the Catholic tradition, taken part in seders and learned about the lulav and etrog in a sukkah with a rabbi, watched Hindu priests do pujas to Ganesh. As a chaplain, I prayed with evangelical Christians who wanted long prayers with 5 different amens, and Quakers who wanted to sit in silence, Muslims who raised their hands to the sky, and New England Episcopalians who made their body as small and stiff as possible in respect. I sang hymns very poorly in an Inuit language, talked with an atheist about the Big Lebowski's dudism, and played cards in a hospital room with the whole family. One semester, I took a class in seminary on Zen Buddhism, where we did Zen-style prostrations in the morning, and then a class in world religions, where we took part in a Sufi zikr in the evening, dancing in circles for several hours. And the combination was sort of a religious hokey pokey. You put your head in and out in the morning, and then you turn yourself around in the evening. And both practices from very different histories and for very different purposes and from very different philosophies. But both practices for the same sense of open-heartedness to all that is. And that's what it's all about. One of my Christian colleagues told me that a congregant complained to her that she preached on the greatest commandment too often. The greatest commandment for those who did not go to Christian church is love God with all your heart and with all your soul and all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. So for a Christian, that's it. That's every sermon. So if you're looking for a new and exciting idea that's going to be really entertaining, spoiler alert, the sermon this week, next week, and every week is going to be about loving God and loving your neighbor, and how those two things are, to accurately translate the Greek word used in that commandment, the same. Love is sort of prismatic. It can look a lot of different ways. We can all reflect a different piece of it with our complex histories and wisdom. But it is the first teaching and the final teaching in any genuine spiritual path. I've met so many people in so many different traditions, and those of no tradition who wouldn't be caught dead in a house of worship. And when they speak about what their religion points them to or what they value in their life the most, it's always presence and love. When as a chaplain, I spoke to people who had near-death experiences and asked them what guidance they took from those wild adventures, it was presence and love. When I've spoken to religious leaders from so many different traditions about where they hope their leadership points people, it's presence and love. When I ask my flying spaghetti monster appreciating atheist friend why he spends his days advocating for disabled people and spoiling his daughter rotten, it's presence and love. I don't think we should try to make religion into one big conglomeration, or as a Tibetan saying goes, put a sheep's head on a yak's body. Some people are allergic to olives. It's good to have different ways. And religions usually lose something of themselves if you try to merge them. But those different paths are all worth walking, and the way to walk them is with love at the center. So do the hokey pokey, turn yourself around, burn some incense, wear a silly hat. Now, I joke, but these different practices really aren't just foolish or superstitious, because different ways of working with our minds and hearts find ways to break through our particular set of defenses or illuminate our particular blind spots and bring us back to some new manifestation or depth of presence and love. And that practice can go on forever. So whatever hokey pokey you do, put love at the center. Ben is glory, glory is Ben. I'll be giving the same sermon next week and every week after that. May we connect to awareness and connect to love. Amen.
Please rise as you're able.
In our every action, may we remember to keep love at the center. Go in peace.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we open our hearts until we are together again. We're nearing the end of our service. After we sing Carry the Flame, you'll have an opportunity to join a social group. There are breakout rooms available online for the next 30 minutes. If you want to join an online breakout room, stay online and the host will place you there. We'll all have refreshments here and conversation in the hall. And we ask that everyone stick around for the general meeting here in the hall that will begin at 12:30. And for those of you online that are members, voting members, please stay online as well. And I want to thank the many people who have given their time and energy to make today's service so amazing and wonderful. The Sunday Services Committee, Reverend Ashley, the audiovisual team, the amazing musical talents of our guest pianist, Nico Rhodes, the greeters and offering collectors, those at the welcoming table, the kitchen volunteers who come early and they stay late for cleanup, those who brought food and beautiful flowers. Our heartfelt gratitude to you all. We'll now sing our final song, Carry the Flame. The words are on the wall in this corner and at the back here. Our custom is to stand, form a big circle, hold hands or touch elbows as you are comfortable. Amen.